All right, so welcome everyone, and we're really excited to follow up after John's talk here, because it really leads into what we'll be speaking about around smart cities, which is a buzzword, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But if you think about some of the technologies that are out there right now, just to sort of introduce this panel a little bit, and then I'll let you know who we're speaking with. So I'm super excited about these guys who have joined us today. If you think about some of the technologies around the smart city, there are also buzzwords around IoT, around big data, around artificial intelligence, and all of these things are set to really transform and help a city. So if you, a new word for you, John, could be the cognitive city. Or urban automation, or something like this. So these are different ways of expressing it without just throwing a buzzword of smart city. But everybody knows it as a smart city. So if you think about all of these technologies that will help improve a cognitive city, you can think about requests from citizens and how we can be smarter on helping gather these things, and how we can help propel forward a city's infrastructure and how it works with the citizens. All of these things are very important, and there's many studies out there, one in particular in Surrey, British Columbia, where they used IBM's Watson to do an AI project where they were able to decrease calls by 65% to a call center from that city. So things like that are real sort of projects that are happening out there. Also, the Consumer Technology Association did mark the market value of smart cities jumping from 15 billion just last year to 35 billion by 2020. That is a huge jump. And it's because everybody knows that things need to be done in the cities. So I want us to talk about that today with our esteemed colleagues here today. These guys are the experts in the market. They're doing real things, real stuff, so I want to gather some info from them. We'll talk about a few things, and then if we have time, we'll ask the audience a few questions. So really happy to have John Razan with us today. As you heard, he's from the New Cities Foundation, doing a lot of work there. And I'll let him reintroduce himself in just a minute in case anybody new came in and didn't see his talk before. We also have Badar Agamdi. So very excited to have you. He's the digital director from the National Digitalisation Unit here. And then also David Cannon, who's the director of Al Korea, and doing some exciting work in Al Wayden. So I'm going to let each of them sort of give you a 1-minute overview of kind of who they are, what they're doing, because they can tell you a lot better than I can, the projects and things that they're working on. So, John, you want to start? I know you just spoke, maybe just a quick 1 minute of who you are.
Okay, I'll be super quick then. Yeah, the New Cities Foundation is based in Montreal, but we're active all around the world. We believe that to tackle the big urban problems of the 21st century, you need a real multi-stake solution. You need to bring together private sector leaders, public sector leaders, entrepreneurs, the research world, media, etc. The city doesn't really belong to anyone. It's sort of a collective, collaborative enterprise. We look very, very closely at the innovation piece, and innovation is definitely another buzzword. But one of the interesting things that we note is around the world, in big cities around the world, big and small, there's really a new class of young entrepreneurs who are working in what we call urban tech. And almost as an asset class, it's become real. I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, no one ever talked about it. But now if you think of it, if you open up your smartphone and you look at the applications you have, probably 75% of them are about ways to unlock the city. And this is a trend, I think, that will continue. So,
Right. Badar, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Todd. Let me just start by saying Assalamu alaikum. واسمحوا لي إني أتكلم to follow our fellow أتكلم باللغة الإنجليزية. So my name is Badr Al-Ghamdi. I'm the Digital Sector Director in the National Digitalisation Unit, وحدة التحول الرقمي. National Digitalisation Unit is a unit that was created by a royal decree around a year ago, and our mandate is to help the government in their digital transformation journey. So we are a center of excellence. we accelerate, we enable, we support the public sector with the partnerships of the private sector to realize or to accelerate the realization of the Vision 2030's objectives. We have multiple domains that we're focusing on, and one of the most important ones are smart city. So thanks for ArabNet. I'm very much excited to be part of this panel.
Thank you. David.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm David Cannon, Executive Director of Al Korea, and working in Riyadh on a mega city within a city, about 7 million square meters. It has healthcare, education, lifestyle, residential buildings, commercial, town central, Central Park. So this is going to be one of the unique and most innovative development in Saudi. It's in design stage. It's about 24 months design stage. The digital infrastructure has been created, the digital master plan, the integrated of all facilities and utilities, and that will be released next year. And so it's a 3 to 7 year timeline. Prior to that, I've been working in the Middle East and Gulf for about 18 years. Burj Dubai, Burj Khalifa now, Jumeirah, beach residence, our dear friends in Qatar on Lulu, and in Kuwait City.
Great, thank you. Badar, I'd like to start with you and just this idea of smart city and the buzzwords and the hype of this. I think it's incredible. I mean, you think about the the project with Bill Gates in Arizona now, where he's getting a lot of that project's getting a lot of negative press because of what they're trying to do and the water resources. And then you talk about the project, even Neom here in Saudi Arabia. There's a video and a lot of hype and exciting. But what really is the winning recipe for success behind building a city like this? And is it real? Is it something that we can actually grasp onto, or what's your thought on that?
Thanks, Todd. So I echo what you're saying on the importance and the excitement that whatever the smart city name is being mentioned, everybody gets excited because this is something that touches everyone. So regardless of your career or your industry or your what do you do or where do you live, it's something that touches families, touches people, citizens and residents. So the Vision 2030, and going back to that topic, it highlights the importance of developing smart cities in the kingdom. One of the key ambitious, let's say, goals and objectives around that domain is to transform our top 5 cities to smart cities by 2020. So the top 5 cities, which accommodates 70% of the population, Riyadh, Jeddah, Dammam, Mecca, and Medina. There's a mandate that we are collaboratively working on transforming them into smart cities by 2020, 17 cities by 2030, and 3 of those to be recognized as in the top smart city list worldwide. So as you can see, it's a very ambitious plan, and I believe that we have the right recipe to achieve these ambitious goals. Very important factor in executing and realizing these ambitious goals, knowing the factor in Saudi Arabia, 70% of our population is less than 35 years old. And this is a very key, let's say, enabler for us to move toward this plan. Those 70% are tech savvy, are social media activists, and their demand have changed. So they're Uberized, and they're more application users. So the government and the services that are being offered needs to adapt to this new change. So that's the adaptation factor, which is always a major challenge in any digital transformation. We don't have it here. So this thing is an enabler for us, and it will help us to move forward in phasing out any ambitious plan in that regard. So we do. There's let's say a nationwide mandate. There's let's say a great and interest and readiness from the population in the kingdom. We believe that a major player in activating those fancy, let's say, smart city plans and ambitious is to actively participate with the private sector. Reaching to a win-win scenario with the private sector is a major milestone in that regard. And I believe this is something that the government, along with the related municipalities and related ministries, need to work on that business model that will really shift the needle by introducing those compelling business model for the private sector to shake hands with the community, along with the participation of the entrepreneurs, to come up with these disruptive ideas that will really make this difference on the lifestyle of the citizens and residents in the kingdom.
Yeah, it's really interesting because the hype of this is actually shedding an awareness of what needs to be done on all the cities that are already existing, kind of back to what you were saying as well too. So it's really good insight. Thank you very much. David, I was going to ask you, it's really great that we want to innovate our cities, but what really is, in your mind, one of the biggest, one or two, or one single biggest challenge to actually introducing these technologies into a city? I mean, you're doing something like this now. So what does it actually look like to build it from scratch, or to take something, you know, that already exists and build on it? What are the practical building blocks for that? Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Of course, thank you, Todd. I think one of the main problems that most developers have is realizing the vision. Al Korea is a 50-year-old publicly listed company in Saudi Arabia, so it has very big strengths and has actual delivery of products in the kingdom. So our aim is to bring in, and we have brought in, international companies with best-in-class systems and processes to bring in the international products, to fit them, to make sure they operate efficiently, to ensure that the sustainable living. For instance, on Al Wadian, we've introduced photovoltaic, both roof-mounted and land-mounted, which reduces the cost of utilities to the customers. One of the major areas of integration is really every time you buy a new product off the shelf, it is the latest product. You have to integrate those products into the community to ensure that the community uses those. So I think, you know, if you buy a smartphone, you're probably using 10% of the smartphone. Our requirement is to maximize 80 to 90% of all the technology and integrate that.
Okay, great. As a sort of seeing globally this smart city technologies and different things like that, I mean, would you agree that smart cities is really sort of this horizontal idea? It's like all of these things, and then there's, what I'm hearing from both of these guys is there's practicalities and actual technologies that need to be plugged in. So if we think of smart cities as a horizontal, then what are really the key technologies, and what are the emerging technologies that maybe we don't even know yet, or maybe some things that you've seen out there that will be a part of what this smart city idea is in the future?
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious to me anyway that artificial intelligence and machine learning are going to be a huge part of smart urbanization going forward. I want to go back to something that Badr Ghamdi said, which I found very interesting, and that is the fact that over half the population is under 25, or 70% is under 35. I think that's the number, which is really why this area of the world, and this country in particular, is so incredibly fascinating for other people. Because in the United States, for example, we're fairly young demographically, but nothing like this. And Europe, of course, is aging very rapidly, as is Japan and Russia and China. So in some ways, this country is in a quite unique position. And when I see in the United States, for example, that the attitudes of millennials, of Generation Z, of Generation Y, are so completely different from my generation. It's extraordinary, and they're going to really be driving so much of the change going forward. My 12-year-old son, for example, will probably never own a car. He will probably never have a driver's license because he won't need to. When he's of age, autonomous vehicles will be ubiquitous. So this is really going to, these kinds of new attitudes are really going to be what's driving this change. And that's why this place is really exciting for anybody who looks at cities.
So I want to pick back up on the private sector. You were talking about the private sector, and you really stressed it with passion. I think when we were talking out there by the coffee, and then also here, I see the passion in your eyes, and I see that the private sector really has to be involved in this to make it successful. And I'll start with you, but open up to you guys if you want to add to this as well too, because I know you're involved with it. But tell us a little bit more about that. Like, how can the private sector really be involved? What are the key areas? Because there's a lot of people trying to do a lot of things, and we don't want to boil the ocean here. We want to really laser focus on some things they can be involved in. And you know, how are you empowering them to do that?
Of course. So, so I need to, okay, let me shed the light again. Why is it important? And why is it essential? It's not even important. If we depended heavily on the let's say the government capex model in activating 17 cities to smart cities, we'll be like pouring the government's budget for the next 10 years just to execute this ambitious plan. So, and this is not the best practice anyways worldwide. So participating actively, and I keep on saying actively, and having this feasible business model, because it's a win-win scenario, it's a partnership model that we want to achieve. It's vital for us to move toward the smart cities plan and ambitious as we envision it. Now, there are multiple ways of executing it, because this is where we always face some challenges, changing these cool new ideas and plans into reality and executing it. We have done some let's say, good steps toward that track. We have signed some memory of understanding with top players in the country and international companies as well, who are focusing more on smart cities. We have rolled out some pilots to test these services and realize it like in real life, and whether it meets the objectives and the outcomes that we hope for or not. What are the challenges that we might face in a pilot that we could avoid in a scale-out project? So we have done that, and we have done it successfully in multiple cities. We do realize that there's some let's say, customization when it comes to each city in the country. We cannot treat each city the same, right? So there are some considerations that needs to be taken in place. So the pilots were customized to meet and respect the cultures and the let's say, customization of that specific uniqueness in the cities. So we have done that, and we have reached to some conclusions and some agreements with some companies to roll out. We started out with blocks, and now we're rolling out to neighborhoods. We're rolling out to cities, not a scale-out city, but mainly around industrial cities. We're testing it now on some of the greenfield cities as well. We want to see it, how it's gonna feel like, what is the adoption from the citizens and the residents within it. But definitely, there are some challenges, and the challenges is mainly around disrupting the lifestyle of the people. Even though it's something beneficial, and they will realize the business outcome and the enhancement of the lifestyle that they will get. and having, again, the support of the majority of the population with us, it will ease the scale out of these projects. So I believe we're moving in a nice rhythm. However, we do have a key ask, and I might use this podium to invite all my partners in the private sector to proactively participate in two areas. We invite them to participate in coming up with an innovative business model proposal on how to partner up with the country and the government to scale out smart city projects. We're still seeing some let's say resistance from our partners in proactively coming up with those let's say innovative ideas. They kind of waiting for us to take the move and coming out with the proposals. While we have said it multiple times on multiple occasions, we would want to advise them and invite them to come up with this. So this is one thing. Secondly, we invite them as well to come back to us with this innovative services. We know there are some, like, let's say, it's becoming a commodity smart city services like smart parking, smart lighting, waste management, and all of these cool stuff, which is pretty good. But what other innovative ideas that we could really come up with? All of us are living in houses and in communities. What are these cool, disruptive ideas that we could introduce as a government and as a private sector and partnering up together to really enhance the way we live, the way we enjoy our neighborhood, the way we play? All of these cool, fancy ideas, how can we really translate it into projects and into business outcome that can really disrupt the way we live in our neighborhood? And something else that I need to mention here, it's no longer the old business model or old way of doing business where we could have all the time of our life to install or to produce projects. We want to come up with these innovative ideas that will help us leapfrog, that will help us change things completely. And I keep on using the Uber idea because it has really disrupted the way we deal with taxis, right? What can we do in the smart city as well that can really disrupt the way we live in our neighborhood? And I think this is something that all the people in the community should be part of it and should participate in it.
That's great.
Well, disruption is a two-edged sword. You know, disruption is not always positive. It can be quite negative. So one of the questions, if I may, for you, Badr, is does the regulatory framework here in Saudi Arabia, is it modernizing as quickly as is needed to make sure that all of these great things come about?
Excellent question. This is a vital enabler or a vital building block for everything that I've said. Unless you have a clear regulations and a clear policy where the private sector can actively participate with the government in a win-win scenario, we will not be able to move anywhere. So this is an action that's being worked on as we speak by the regulatory department within the Ministry of Municipality and Rural Affairs, being the key government entity who are responsible to scale out the smart city across the projects. Of course, with the help with the other government entities, the High Commission of Development of the top 3 cities, Riyadh, Mecca, and Medina, they are all shifting toward this new mindset where we need to regulate and, let's say, scale out the operation and partnership with the private sector rather than doing it themselves. So we are in that process. The mandate of transforming our top 5 cities to smart cities in less than 3 years is very ambitious. So unless we accelerate in releasing this regulatory that will activate the participation of the private sector, we will not be able to achieve that.
Yeah. David, I'm curious, what sort of work are you doing with the private sector? Because you have lots of technologies and things that you're working with. So tell us a little more about that and how you've engaged.
Yeah, we've engaged on a private-public partnership arrangement. We welcome international companies. We are working with international companies to come in and invest in Saudi Arabia. And there are some very good markets that would like to move into Saudi Arabia. We work with all Saudi companies. When you're spending billions of Saudi riyals, every product you can think of will go into the mega development. If you look at this plot of land, on the project that we're working, it's about 1,000th of the size of the development. So it sits within a 1,000th of the size. So this is a mega city, has 10,000 residential units. So every product is used. So if you're thinking entrepreneurial, start a business, digital, construction, we are looking to embrace all Saudi companies, and there is an opportunity for everyone as part of the private sector. We're also supported by government entities, Saudi Electricity Company, Saudi Telecoms, National Water Corporation, but even those government bodies are putting out work to the private sector. So there's an opportunity for everyone.
Great. So I wonder if we might have 1 or 2 questions from the audience as we wrap up here today. So does anybody have a question for anybody in particular up here, or just a general question? Would love to hear your thoughts. I think we'll probably have a microphone coming here in case anybody does. So just raise your hand and they'll come to the microphone with you. If not, that's okay.
It's good to be bold.
It's got one down here. Sure.
I have a question for David. For the business units you are building, are you guys considering smart home over there?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The Al Wadian project will be one of the smartest cities in the world. We've already been through 24 months of design, so the master plan, the digital master plan, has been set. We are using the most advanced products in the world. We've got the integration of services and systems. We will have a single buyer system, so when you look at your app under an urban app city arrangement, you'll be able to monitor your utility consumption, you'll look at service charges, you'll look at every part of the development and integrate within the community. So yes, you will see a product that ranks the highest in the world because it's a greenfield site. We're buying every product from the marketplace and we're integrating that into a data center environment, using the Internet of Things. So everything will be connected, everything will be tested and commissioned, and we tend to use mystery buyers, mystery shoppers, mystery owners to test those systems before the owners and occupiers move in. That's technology
Microphone.
for you.
There we go.
Another question to you. Did you decide on technologies that you'll be using, or are you still open to see multiple options as well?
We're open to every option. We generally put in a fiber optic network throughout the development, and so over that fiber optic development network, we can stream any service. So, for instance, we can stream digital services. We can bring in technology from anywhere around the world, as long as it's open protocol and it works within the systems we have.
And my last question to you, when are you going to start developing this city?
The project starts in earnest in January 2018. So we have a phased development program. As you can imagine, with a 7 million square meter piece of land, everything will be going in over a staged period. We tend to put the infrastructure in first. So we have containment for all the digital. We have containment for electrical systems, water and the such like. We have, over the last 12 months, put in 10 key performance indicators for sustainable living, sustainable environment, lifestyle, energy usage. So the development will be using 40% less energy than other developments around the world. And the reason we've done that is we're looking at stretched targets for electricity, water consumption, and pioneering level. So we can take it to the next level by bringing in partners in the private sector and asking them to solicit interest in the product by giving advanced technology. So,
solar energy, is it part of your plan?
yes, it is. We've got 100 megawatt of solar energy on the development. There's a 20 megawatt land-based and 80 megawatt roof-based. So every building within the development, the architects have fitted, allowed adequate provision for photovoltaic. Indeed, we are working with Saudi Electricity Company to make sure that we can connect into the grid. And there's a thing called net metering where you can export to the grid if you're not using that photovoltaic. We also are looking at a remote 300 megawatt photovoltaic farm that will connect into the Al Wadian product.
Great.
Thank you very much.
You have another question back here? Probably our last one. Is that right, Fatima? Do we need to? Okay.
Hi, my name is Loy D'Souza. I work with the economic consulting company Maxwell Stamp, and we are currently working on a PPP project with Royal Commission Jubail on smart city. As much as what's been said that we want to proceed very fast, how do you feel in terms of laws, in terms of PPP law, in terms of CITC laws, the regulatory framework? How soon do you see that coming to a kind of a open platform for allowing things to flourish, as ambitious as we would like to sound?
David, do you have a
I
thought?
think maybe I can answer one part of that question. Recently, Al Korea for the Al Wadian project has become the first company in Saudi Arabia to be a self-regulatory body. So we will self-regulate the development. That means that that doesn't mean to say that we lower the standards. Indeed, we go the opposite way. We go to internationally world-class standards, and we implement systems and processes that will actually work in line with the regulatory bodies and the authorities. So there is a very much a change from how Saudi Arabia working on the 2030 vision to give empowerment to developers to self-regulate and to move the process in a much more streamlined way.
And that works really well for a new city and a new structure building up. What about ones that are already existing? Or what do you guys think?
So, as I said earlier, we believe the existing regulations does not really support any PPP model or any PPP interest from the private sector. So this is what we have been working on. The new government, let's say, they are really very much interested in moving forward in that direction for multiple reasons. One of it, and the most important of it, is the realization of the smart cities objectives will not be able to happen unless we actively participate with the private sector. So the regulations, the policies, the different business models that will be introduced as a catalog, either a triple P model or a BOT model or any other models that make sense and makes feasible sense for both parties will be introduced soon. And when I say soon, I'm not talking about years, hopefully within months. All the government-related entities in that regard are moving forward in that direction, because we know the moment we reach to this right partnership model, we will disrupt basically the smart city initiatives and projects, because we have a lot of interest from the private sector, either from a local private sector or the international companies, who would really want to play a big role in developing the smart city initiatives and projects in the country. So what I would ask you is stay tuned. We are working on it, and hopefully things can be announced very soon.
Great. So John, just any other cities in the world that you've seen come up with the same challenges that are doing something innovative around regulation, or are they all sort of in the same boat?
Yeah, no, I think if you look at any big European city, big American city, you know, they're advancing in this area very quickly now. I think the interesting question is, in fact, I'm not worried about big cities around the world. They'll get their act together. The CTOs of a New York or a San Francisco are as competent as the CTO of Google probably. I think it's in tier 2 cities around the world, in Europe and North America, China, in India, where we need to see movement, because that's in fact where the bulk of urban residents live. So medium-sized cities is going to be the big challenge, I think, if you look at it from a global perspective.
Yeah. Very interesting discussion, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Let's give them a big hand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you. عفوا. موعد عليكم السلام. موعد الغداء حيكون بإذن الله للساعة 2:30. حنرجع مرة ثانية نعود فعالياتنا وجلساتنا. بالنسبة للسيدات الغداء حيكون في الطابق الرابع بإذن الله. تفضلوا.